Morning. Today is Friday, the 6th day of Teves. So we continue in chapter 6 of Likutei Amarim. In this chapter that we started yesterday, the Alter Rebbe goes on with the explanation of what is the animal soul. So we learned yesterday that the animal, the Almighty had created one thing opposite the other. He created the godly soul with all its 10 faculties, with its garments, that is completely connected, nullified to Hashem. The same thing also there are in the animalistic soul, the animal soul. You have he calls it the 10 impure crowns, or 10 crowns of impurities, which are the 7 evil midos, emotional character traits, and also the intellect. And we explained how in the evil side everything is rooted in the emotions. When it comes to the holy side, everything is rooted in the intellect. And based from the intellect, you create emotions. What does that mean? That when it comes to materialistic things, you don't need to think very hard to gain desire to have materialistic things. Everybody naturally is born by it. I want the animalistic soul, just like an animal is seeking its own pleasures, the same thing. When it comes to passion, lusts, or all kinds of things, this is something we have natural. Yes, the intellect serves a purpose of revealing it. That's why a child his desires is to smaller things. And an adult, he wants the car, he wants the house, he wants the respect, he wants the fame, whatever your ideas of pleasures are. And this is, and when it comes to the godly soul is the desire, the love and fear of holy things doesn't come naturally. It is created through the intellect, through the understanding. It is rooted in the intellectual part. You have to think, you have to study, you have to appreciate that, and then you work on it until you reveal it within you. And Alter Rebbe concluded yesterday that you have the 3 garments, the thoughts, the speech, and action. That when a person, from the animal soul we're talking about now, and when a person thinks and talks and does things which is not holy, it becomes garments to the animal soul. It becomes garments to the impurity. Now, we said, what is it? What is it that is not holy? This is what we concluded yesterday, saying what is not holy? There is no gray area. Anything which is not godly is not holy. And this is the Alter Rebbe is going to focus now on today's lesson. Now, what is holy? What does it mean, holy? Holy is godly. Anything which is not, and this we need to understand also, what does it mean, anything which is not? Could there be anything in this world that is not godly? After all, everything comes from God. Nothing can exist outside of God. So this Alter Rebbe is going to continue to explain a little bit here that there is a way that God is in something in a revealed manner, and that is holiness. Anything which is not connected to God, which feels itself separate, then the sustenance of it from God is in a concealed manner. So let's look inside what the Alter Rebbe says in today's lesson. Okay, it says yesterday, we're going to go to today. There we go. So yesterday we said about all the things that is not godly. Says the Alter Rebbe, "V'chein kol hadiburim v'kol hamachshavos asher lo l'Hashem heima u'lirtzonei v'la'avodasei." Similarly, all words and all thoughts that are not directed to God and to His will and His service are all garments for the animal soul. Shezeu pirush lashon sitra achra, pirush tzad acher she'einoi tzad hakedusha. For this is the meaning of the term sitra achra. You're going to have this term in Tanya a lot. Sitra achra. Sitra achra is Aramaic for the other side. What is the other side? Anything which is not holiness. So whatever does not belong to the realm of holiness is the other side. But now you have to understand, you have to get the understanding the term of holiness. What is holiness? What is the side of holiness? This the Alter Rebbe is going to explain. Holiness is godliness. You say there was, I think it was the Katzka Rebbe, I think. But there was one in the Beis Medrash, in the synagogue, and people were sitting, learning, and whatever. And he walked in suddenly in the Beis Medrash, and he asked, "Aviz the Eibishter, where is God?" People were like, was a very unexpected question. What does it mean, where is God? God is everywhere. And he was waiting for people to answer. And then he answered himself, Avi min lustem aran, wherever you let him in. Wherever you let God in, that's where he is. So what does that mean? The Rebbe is going to explain that anything that has bitul, self-nullification, if you allow yourself to be nullified, remove your own senses of self, you allow the light of Hashem shining in you. When you realize whatever you do, it is God, even when you're doing good things. Take, for example, people who like to give tzedakah. They're very charitable. They're giving charity. So you have a person who gives charity, and what does he feel? He says, look, I have my own so much money, I am blessed, I have so much money, and I'm giving for my whatever I want, I give charity, and even if it's a big number, very generously, which is an amazing thing. And you should be blessed, it should be really admired. But then there is a deeper level, a higher level. There's a person who feels that it's not me who is giving. God gave me the money. It's not my money. It's not mine. Hashem gave me the opportunity to give someone, help someone. So it's a whole different understanding, a whole different approach. And the same thing is with everything in life. The more a person feels himself nullified to Hashem, the more a person feels less himself and more God, the more holiness dwells in the person. So this is what the Alter Rebbe says. V'tzad ha'kedusha einoi elo hashra ve'amshacha mikdushosoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the side of holiness is nothing but the indwelling and extension of God's holiness. And Alter Rebbe goes on and says, "Ve'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu sheire elo al davar shebatel etzlo yizborech." Now God dwells only on that which is surrendered to Him. Now, what does it mean surrendered to Him? Says the Alter Rebbe, it could be in actuality, and it could be in potential. What do I mean? There are those who surrender to Hashem that are completely bottled and nullified to Hashem in actuality, like an angel, for example. And then there are those who are in potentially nullified to Hashem. Says the Alter Rebbe, Bein bepoyel mamish kemalachim elyonim, whether the surrender is an actual one and visible in the surrender as being external aspects, as in the case of the supernal angels, whose entire being is constantly and openly surrendered to God. Bein bekoyach, or whether it is a potential surrender. And who is in the potential surrender? Potential nullification to Hashem? He says every single Jew. He says kechol ish Yisrael lemata, as in the case of every Jew here below, in this physical world. Shebekoychai li yizbotel mamish legabe HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who has the capacity for surrendering himself completely before God. The Mesiras Nafshei El Kedushas Hashem, through martyrdom for the sanctification of God's name. This the Alter Rebbe is going to explain later on in more details. The fact that a Jew is able to completely give his life up to Hashem, this is something that you don't find anywhere, by anyone. And this is, you see it, even though you can say, oh, I know other people who are going and committing suicide for their beliefs, but there is a big difference. If a person was raised in a certain way, whatever it is, brainwashed, became radicalized, that's one thing. He's doing whatever he was trained to do, whatever he was taught. But when it comes to the self-sacrifice of Jewish people throughout the history, we find that people who are not necessarily religious, brought up not in a religious way, but when it came to time, when it came to the time of the test, the very core connection with Hashem was tested, they would give everything away. And that's really it defies any logic. The only reason why it's done, because there is something in the core, some subconsciously, in the DNA of a Jew, the neshama, the spark of the soul is there, and this is what it says, this is the kedusha, the holiness that is in each and every one in potential. Could be the worst Jew that on the outside, on the regular day-to-day, it seems like the worst person. But deep inside, there is that potential. This is what it says, this is the kedusha in actuality, in a revealed way, like angels, or in potential in everyone. ולכן אמרו חז"ל שאפילו אחד שיושב ועוסק בתורה, שכינה שרויה כולו. That is why our sages have said that if even one individual sits and engages in Torah studies, the divine presence rests upon him. Yeah, this is the Mishnah in the Ethics of the Fathers. So why? So for when one engages in Torah studies, he's surrendered to godliness emerges to affect him on a revealed external level. Since such study entails setting aside one's own notion and presumptions in order to understand and accept God's wisdom and will as expressed in the Torah. It is this surrender to godliness that caused the divine presence to rest upon the Torah students. So here again, so that is connected with the idea of surrendering to Hashem. When you study the Torah, we learned 2 days ago that the Torah is considered like the food that you have to ingest and you have to digest, the bread, compared to bread. So when you get the Torah and you digest it, meaning that you have the holiness of it, you nullify your thoughts to Hashem's thoughts. So the idea of the self-nullification is the idea of allowing godliness shine in you. More than that, he says that. He says there is another statement in the Talmud, in Sanhedrin 39b, that says, "V'chol beyasara shchinta shaya," and the Alter Rebbe adds la'olam, which means, on each gathering of 10 Jews, the divine presence rests. Wherever the 10 Jews, there's something about 10 Jews together. The 10 Jews together brings the Shekhinah. By the way, there are sages, there are commentators, opinions that say that even if you have a baby, doesn't matter how old the child is. When you have 10 Jews together in one room, there is this special divine presence there. Alter Rebbe once said that even when an angel goes in, if there's a room of 10 Jews and sitting together, the angel will be burnt. The angel cannot contain this holiness. There's too much holiness. And that doesn't matter what they do. Only being 10 in the one room, there is a holiness there. Obviously, the holiness is there, so that should give us some thoughts to realize what we should do, because Hashem's presence is so much here. And if we do something which is not very holy, then this is a bigger humiliation to God, so to speak. So what we need to take this in consideration by understanding what happens when we are together in one room. So that says that, but this is true for anyone. Whenever there are 10 Jews, it says the Shechinta Shaya, and then the Alter Rebbe adds La'olam forever. Always, meaning doesn't matter whether they study Torah or not. Imagine how much more it is when they use it and study Torah, which they have both things together, and then they have the study of the Torah as well. So this is holy. So holiness is anything that is nullified to Hashem. Aval, but the other hand, kol ma she'einay botel etzlai isbarech elu davar nifrad b'fnei atzmai einay mekabel chayusoi migdushosoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Anything, however, that does not surrender itself to God, but considers itself as if it is a thing separate unto itself, does not receive its life from the holiness of God. Doesn't receive its life from the holiness of God. What does it mean, doesn't receive its life from the holiness of God? Where does it receive its life? Because after all, it needs to receive its life from God in order to exist. So the Alter Rebbe doesn't receive it from the holiness, meaning Mibchinas pnimius akdusha umahusa ve'atzmusa bichvoido be'atzma. Means from the holiness that doesn't receive from the pnimius, from the inner aspect of holiness, from its very essence and core. But from its achoraim, its hind part, so to speak. What does it mean? It is just like we used in other times, in that the Rebbe brings an example, when there is things that a person can give in an inner way, from the inward. In Hebrew, it's called the panim. Panim means the inward, but also from the face. So when you give something to someone that you enjoy, you give it from the face, you give it from the inwardness. And sometimes you have to give something to someone you don't want to give. You have to give if you have an employer, let's say, you don't like him very much, but you have to give them a birthday present. So you give it to him, but you give it to him like from the back, not with the inwardness. The same thing here, the Alter Rebbe says, the Kedusha, anything which is holy, which is nullified to Hashem, our connection with God, and what we receive from the inwardness of God. And anything else receives from the back. And even receiving from the back, says the Alter Rebbe, it goes down and is filtered and becomes reduced and condensed so many thousands and hundreds of thousands of times, reduced the greatness of the light until it can feel itself like a separate thing. It doesn't feel its connection at all to Hashem. Continues the Alter Rebbe. After, even those who receive from the hind part, this limited form of life force reaches the klippos, the shells, by descending degree by degree through myriads of levels in the chain-like descent of the world in the manner of cause and effect. What does it mean, the manner of cause and effect that goes down? There's a cause and effect. There is, for example, you see the light of the sun comes down. The light of the sun comes down, shines into the world. What happens at night? At night, we receive the light from the moon. Now, the moon is an effect from the light of the sun. It goes through the moon. The moon receives from the sun and shines, but it's a much more reduced light. Imagine this going down tens of thousands of times, from the sun to the moon, and from the moon to the next level, and the next level to the next level, how much reduced the light is. So this is, again, the godliness reduced that many levels, tens of thousands of times, reduced and reduced. But this is true in one way, but after all, the sun and the moon are related somehow. So yes, they're reduced, but they still have some relationship between the cause and the effect. But in order to receive from godliness, to create a physical world, and especially a world that feels itself separated from Hashem, those kind of reductions is not enough. You need to have also what is called tzimtzumim, contractions. Contractions is something that is completely changed, that there's no relation between the cause and the effect. It is a very far more distant contraction. That's what Alter Rebbe says. Vetzimtzumim rabim. The vitality descends also through many tzimtzumim or contractions. And this process diminishes the vitality to the point where it is incomparably lower than its original state. So greatly diminished does the light and life force become. Diminution after diminution, until it is able to become contracted and clothed in a manner of exile. What does it mean that it becomes in a manner of exile? just like in exile. A person who is in exile, a person who is in jail, he's not free to do what he wants. He's doing whatever his superior tells him to do. The same thing is the godliness is so diminished, and it goes into exile, goes into the existence of the world, the physical things, those that oppose God, and the godliness allows them to live, gives them life. But it's in exile. This vitality is thus in a state of exile within the object, which is, meaning it considers itself separate from holiness, giving it existence, causing that the object to pass from non-existence to existence. So that it does not return to its original state of non-existence that it was before it was created by the vitality clothing it. So in brief, says Delta, is what we just said. So all that is not surrendered to God, but considered itself separated from Him, receives its vitality from the achoraim of godliness, the in part of godliness, by way of numerous descents and various contractions. So the divine life force is concealed within it in a state of exile. Thus, it belongs to the realm of Kalipa. Kalipa means the shell. It is now clear why any thought, word, or action not directed towards serving God, hence not surrendered to godliness, is a garment of the animal soul that derives from the Kalipa, even if that thought, word, or deed is not actually evil. You don't need to be evil in order to be not godly. And what we see from here, number one, from this lesson, we see the power of the holiness of a Yid on the one hand. And at the same time, we recognize what is not holy, and whatever is not holy, the godliness there is in a form of exile. And we need to take it out from exile. Hashem is waiting for us to redeem. How do we redeem, so to speak, the godly sparks, to learning the Torah and the more nullification to Hashem? So this is the end of today's shir. Thank you so much for joining. We'll continue B'ezrat Hashem on Sunday. And have a wonderful Shabbos. Anyone has any questions, we can take questions now.